My daughter said she's pregnant for the 3th time, but I'm done raising her kids. So I let her drown in her own mistakes, and now she finally understands my pain, but it's too late for mercy. Okay, so where do I even begin? The air in Tampa is thick, heavy, even inside my little bungalow. The kind of humid that clings to your skin, makes your clothes stick. I'm Linda, 52, and I feel every one of those years pressing down on me like the Florida humidity. My life, before all this mess, was simple, like a well-loved book with dog-eared pages. I had my bungalow, painted a cheerful butter yellow, with a porch swing that creaked a comforting rhythm. I had my job at the public library, surrounded by the hushed whisper of turning pages and the comforting scent of old paper. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved it. The quiet hum of knowledge, the stories unfolding, the feeling of being a small part of something bigger. And I had my daughter, Brittany. She was my world, my everything. A vibrant splash of color in my quiet life. We were close, always had been. 2 peas in a pod, people used to say. We'd spend hours on Clearwater Beach, the white sand hot beneath our feet, the salty air whipping through Brittany's long, dark hair. Movie nights were a ritual. Curled up on the worn floral sofa with bowls of popcorn, Brittany's head resting on my shoulder. We'd talk for hours, giggling over silly things, sharing secrets whispered in the dark. She was a good kid, bright, funny, beautiful, with a smile that could light up a room. She had this infectious laugh, a sound that used to fill my house with joy. Now it just echoes in the silence. When she got pregnant with Jaden at 19, it was a shock, a cold splash of reality on a warm summer day. But beneath the worry, a different kind of warmth bloomed, the thrill of being a grandma. Little Jaden arrived, this perfect little bundle of joy, all 10 tiny fingers and toes, his skin smelling of baby powder and sunshine. I was hooked. I helped Brittany out as much as I could, juggling work, grocery shopping, and rocking a fussy baby to sleep. It was hard for her, being so young. The father, well, let's just say he was more of a sperm donor than a dad. He flitted in and out of Brittany's life like a hummingbird, never staying long enough to build a nest. But we managed. We were a team, Brittany and me, navigating the choppy waters of single motherhood together. Then came Lily, 2 years later, another beautiful baby girl, with big, curious eyes and a mischievous grin. And again, I was there. Diaper changes in the middle of the night, endless loads of tiny, brightly colored laundry, the constant hum of lullabies. The scent of baby shampoo became a permanent fixture in my house, mingling with the aroma of coffee brewing at 3 a.m. I loved being a grandma, I truly did. Those kids are my heart, beating outside my chest. We lived in this cozy little bungalow, crammed with toys and high chairs and the constant evidence of small, sticky hands. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We made it work, or at least I did. Brittany wasn't exactly rolling in dough, working part-time at a local diner, her tips barely covering the cost of diapers. I chipped in where I could, covering the rent, buying groceries, paying for school supplies. I didn't mind, not at first. I wanted to help. I wanted to be there for her, like my mom had been for me when I was struggling to raise Brittany on my own. We'd sit on the porch swing in the evenings, the humid air thick around us, and I'd tell Brittany stories about her childhood, about how much I loved her, about how I knew she'd figure things out. "Mom," she'd say, her voice tired, "I'm trying." She'd give me a small, strained smile, and I'd squeeze her hand, reassuring her that everything would be all right. I guess I never saw this coming. I never imagined that my golden years, the years I dreamed of spending traveling, maybe taking a pottery class, would be filled with endless diaper changes, tantrums that rattled the windows, and the constant gnawing worry about how I was going to make ends meet. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that Brittany was young, that she'd get on her feet eventually, find a better job, a stable partner, that she'd figure things out. God, I was wrong. So wrong. It happened so gradually, like the tide creeping in, inch by inch, until suddenly, I was drowning. Brittany's reliance on me became less about temporary help and more about, well, everything. Jaden started kindergarten, and suddenly, I was the one picking him up, taking him to soccer practice, helping him with his homework. Brittany would be too tired after work or have plans with friends, plans that always seemed to involve her going out while I stayed in with the kids. Then Lily started preschool, and it was the same story, double the chaos. 2 kids, 2 different schedules, 2 sets of needs. Doctor's appointments, school plays, parent-teacher conferences. I was the one there, always. Brittany would show up sometimes, flashing a quick smile, scooping up the kids for a hurried hug before disappearing again. I felt like a single parent all over again, only this time I was raising 2 kids while my own daughter lived her life. My quiet evenings on the porch swing, reading, listening to the crickets chirp, vanished. My weekends, once filled with trips to the beach or quiet afternoons browsing the used bookstores downtown, were now consumed by birthday parties, play dates, and endless trips to the grocery store to restock the fridge, which seemed to empty as quickly as I filled it. My savings, carefully accumulated over the years, dwindled, eaten away by the constant expenses of raising 2 growing children. I had to give up my pottery classes, the one thing I did for myself, the one thing that brought me a sliver of peace in the midst of the chaos. I started getting migraines, these throbbing headaches that felt like tiny gremlins hammering away inside my skull. My sleep became fractured, punctuated by the sounds of children crying, nightmares, early morning cartoons blaring from the TV. I was exhausted, bone-tired, the kind of tired that seeped into your soul. I tried talking to Brittany, of course. We'd be sitting at the kitchen table, amidst the remnants of a hurried dinner, chicken nuggets and half-eaten applesauce, and I'd try to broach the subject. "Brittany, honey," I'd say, my voice gentle, "I love Jaden and Lily, you know that. But I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I need a little more help." She'd sigh, pushing a stray strand of hair out of her face, her eyes fixed on the swirling pattern of the Formica tabletop. "I know, Mom," she'd mumble. "I'm sorry. It's just, work is so draining." Or, "I had a really rough day, Mom. Can we talk about this later?" Later never came. The conversations always ended the same way, with me feeling guilty for even bringing it up, and Brittany promising to do better. A promise that evaporated like the morning mist. I started to resent her, resent the way she seemed to take my help for granted, resent the way she prioritized her social life over her children over me. I loved my grandkids, I truly did. They were the bright spots in my increasingly gray world. But this wasn't how I envisioned my life. I wasn't supposed to be raising my grandchildren. I was supposed to be enjoying my own life, traveling, pursuing my hobbies, maybe even finding someone to share it with. Instead, I was trapped, drowning in a sea of sippy cups, dirty laundry, and unmet expectations. The resentment simmered beneath the surface, a low, constant burn that threatened to erupt at any moment. And then, it happened. The final straw. The moment everything changed. It was a Tuesday night, the kind of sticky, suffocating Tuesday night that Tampa specializes in. The air hung heavy, thick with the promise of a thunderstorm that never quite arrived. We were having dinner, the 3 of us, me, Brittany, and the kids. Spaghetti night, Jaden's favorite. He was slurping up the noodles with gusto, a smear of tomato sauce across his cheek. Lily, ever the picky eater, was meticulously separating the pasta from the sauce, creating 2 distinct piles on her plate. Brittany was scrolling through her phone, her thumb moving in that rapid, hypnotic motion that made my teeth grind. The TV was on, some inane cartoon blaring in the background, but none of us were really watching. The air in the small kitchen felt thick, charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. I cleared my throat, trying to break the silence. "So, Brittany," I started, "how was work?" She glanced up, her eyes flitting over my face before returning to her phone. "Fine," she mumbled, her voice flat. "Same old, same old." I took a deep breath, trying to push down the familiar knot of frustration that was forming in my stomach. "Anything exciting happen?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She shrugged, her attention still glued to the glowing screen. "Not really." Another silence descended, punctuated only by the clatter of Jaden's fork against his plate and the incessant drone of the TV. I pushed my half-eaten plate away, my appetite gone. I had a strange feeling in the pit of my stomach, a premonition, like the air before a hurricane. Then Brittany looked up, a strange, almost dreamy expression on her face. She put her phone down on the table, the sudden silence amplifying the buzzing in my ears. She took a deep breath, and the words tumbled out, casual, almost offhand, like she was announcing what she was having for lunch. "So I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air, heavy, suffocating, like the humidity. My fork clattered to the floor, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. Jaden stopped slurping his spaghetti, his eyes wide and curious. Lily, oblivious, continued her meticulous dissection of her dinner. I stared at Brittany, my mouth open, unable to speak. Pregnant. Again. The word reverberated in my head, a dull, throbbing ache. She just sat there, looking at me, a small, almost smug smile playing on her lips. It was the smile that did it. The smile that said, "Well, Mom, what are you going to do now?" The smile that assumed, expected, that I would, once again, step in, take over, fix everything. The smile that said, without saying a word, that she had me, that I was trapped. A wave of nausea washed over me, a physical manifestation of the despair that was rising inside me. My chest felt tight, like a vice was squeezing the air out of my lungs. My hands trembled, the chipped porcelain of my coffee mug rattling against the Formica tabletop. All those years of suppressed frustration, of exhaustion, of resentment, rose to the surface, a tidal wave of emotion threatening to consume me. In that moment, I felt like I was looking into a distorted mirror, seeing a reflection of my own past mistakes, my own sacrifices, my own life slowly slipping away, swallowed whole by the endless needs of others. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. The buzzing in my ears intensified, a high-pitched whine that drowned out the cartoon blaring from the TV. My vision blurred, the linoleum floor seeming to ripple beneath me, the tomato sauce on Jaden's cheek, the little piles of separated pasta on Lily's plate, Brittany's expectant smile. It all swam before my eyes, a distorted, nightmarish tableau. "No," I said, the word a choked whisper, barely audible above the ringing in my ears. I shook my head, a slow, deliberate movement, as if trying to shake off a bad dream. "No, absolutely not." Brittany's smile faltered, a flicker of confusion replacing the smugness. "What?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief. "What do you mean, no?" The words tumbled out of me, harsh, ragged, fueled by years of suppressed anger and resentment. "I mean, I'm done, Brittany. I'm done raising your kids. I'm done being your personal babysitter, your cook, your maid, your ATM. I'm done." My voice rose with each word, cracking with emotion. I pushed my chair back from the table, the legs scraping against the floor, a harsh, jarring sound that seemed to echo the turmoil inside me. "Mom, what are you talking about?" Brittany's voice was sharp, edged with panic. You can't just abandon me." "Abandon you?" I repeated, the word dripping with sarcasm. "Is that what you call it? Me taking care of your kids while you gallivant around, living your life like you don't have a care in the world? Me sacrificing everything, my time, my money, my own damn life, to pick up your slack? That's not abandonment, Brittany. That's enabling. And I'm done enabling you." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold on to my coffee mug. I set it down on the table, the porcelain clinking against the Formica. Jaden started to cry, his small body shaking with sobs. Lily, finally noticing the tension in the room, looked from me to Brittany, her lower lip trembling. "Don't you yell at Mommy!" Jaden shrieked, his face red and blotchy. He threw his plastic fork at me, hitting me in the chest with a dull thud. "Jaden!" Brittany snapped, grabbing his arm. "Don't be rude to Grandma." She turned to me, her eyes blazing. "Mom, you can't do this. I need you. The kids need you." "What am I supposed to do?" "I don't know, Britta." "And why?" I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and exhaustion. "Figure it out. You're a grown woman. You're a mother. It's time you started acting like one." I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving behind the sounds of Jaden's cries, Lily's whimpers, and Brittany's stunned silence. I stumbled into the living room, the familiar clutter of toys and children's books suddenly feeling oppressive, suffocating. I sank onto the worn floral sofa, the springs groaning beneath my weight. I buried my face in my hands, the tears finally coming, hot and heavy, a release of years of pent-up frustration and grief. My chest heaved with sobs, my body shaking with the force of my emotions. I had finally said it. I had finally drawn a line in the sand. But even as a wave of relief washed over me, a different kind of ache began to spread through my chest, a cold, hollow feeling that whispered of regret and a fear of what was to come. The fallout was nuclear. It started with my sister Carol. She called me the next morning, her voice dripping with disapproval. "Linda, what have you done?" Brittany called me. "She's hysterical. You can't just abandon her like this." "I'm not abandoning her," I said, rubbing my temples, already feeling a headache coming on. "I'm just not going to raise her third child for her. She needs to take responsibility for her own life." "Responsibility?" Carol scoffed. "She's a single mother with 2 kids and another on the way. She needs help, Linda. You're her mother. You're supposed to be there for her." "I have been there for her," I snapped, my voice rising. "For the past 5 years, I've been raising her kids while she's been out living her life. When is it my turn? When do I get to live my life?" Carol sighed, the kind of long-suffering sigh that made me want to throw my phone across the room. "Don't be dramatic, Linda. Family helps family. It's what we do." That's what they all said. Family helps family. It became their mantra, their battle cry. My mother, my other sister, even some of my cousins, they all chimed in, each phone call a variation on the same theme. I was selfish, heartless, cruel. I was abandoning my own daughter and grandchildren. How could I do this to them? "She's pregnant, Linda," my mother wailed over the phone. "Don't you understand? She needs you now more than ever." "She made herself pregnant, Mom," I retorted, my voice tight with frustration. "This is the 3rd time, for God's sake. At what point does she take some responsibility for her own actions?" The guilt trips were relentless. They painted a picture of Brittany, alone and struggling, a victim of circumstance. They conveniently glossed over the years I'd spent sacrificing everything for her and her kids, the years I'd put my own life on hold. They acted like I was some kind of monster for finally saying enough. And Brittany, well, she went through a range of emotions. First, disbelief, then anger. Then this pleading, this desperate attempt to guilt me into changing my mind. "Mom, please," she sobbed over the phone, her voice thick with tears. "I don't know what I'm going to do. The father, he's gone. He said he can't handle another kid. He just left." My heart ached for her, I won't lie. Hearing her cry, hearing the desperation in her voice, it twisted something inside me. But I held firm. I knew that if I gave in now, I'd be trapped forever. "Brittany," I said, my voice softer now, "I'm sorry. I truly am. But I can't do this anymore. You need to figure this out on your own." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy, filled with unspoken accusations. Then the line went dead. The weeks that followed were a blur of phone calls, arguments, and tearful pleas. The pressure from my family was relentless, a constant barrage of guilt and accusations. I started avoiding their calls, screening my emails. I felt like I was under siege, trapped in my own home, the cheerful yellow paint suddenly feeling oppressive, suffocating. I'd sit on the porch swing in the evenings, the humid air thick and heavy, and listen to the sounds of the neighborhood children playing, their laughter a sharp contrast to the silence in my own home. The swing creaked a mournful rhythm, a soundtrack to my solitude. I missed Jaden and Lily, missed their sticky hugs, their infectious laughter, the way they'd climb onto my lap and demand stories. I missed the chaos, the noise, the constant activity that had filled my life for the past 5 years. But I also knew deep down that I couldn't go back. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own life for hers. I saw Brittany a few times, at the grocery store, at the park. She looked different. Tired, thinner, the carefree sparkle in her eyes replaced with a dullness that made my heart ache. She was struggling, I could see it. Juggling 2 jobs, trying to keep up with the demands of 2 young children, dealing with the emotional and physical strain of pregnancy. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her smile, when she managed one, seemed forced, brittle. I wanted to reach out to her, to offer her a hug, to tell her that everything would be all right, but I didn't. I couldn't. I knew that if I showed her even a sliver of weakness, she'd latch onto it, pull me back into the vortex of her life, and I'd drown. I had to be strong, for both of us. I had to let her sink or swim. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. The months that followed were a slow, agonizing drip of doubt and regret. The silence in my house was deafening. No more tiny footsteps padding down the hallway, no more shrieks of laughter, no more sticky fingerprints on the furniture. Just silence. And the constant, gnawing question, did I do the right thing? Some days I felt a fierce sense of justification. I'd replay the years of exhaustion, the endless sacrifices, the constant feeling of being taken advantage of, and a hard knot of anger would form in my stomach. I'd remember Brittany's casual announcement of her 3rd pregnancy, the smug smile on her face, the unspoken expectation that I would, once again, step in and fix everything, and a wave of resentment would wash over me. I'd tell myself that I deserved a life, that I had given enough, that it was time for Brittany to finally grow up and take responsibility for her own choices. Other days, though, the doubt crept in, insidious and relentless. I'd see a young mother pushing a stroller in the park, a little girl with pigtails skipping down the sidewalk, and a sharp pang of longing would pierce my heart. I'd remember Jaden's infectious giggle, Lily's sweet, toothless grin, the way they'd both wrap their small arms around my neck and squeeze tight. And the guilt would gnaw at me, a constant dull ache in my chest. Were they okay? Did they miss me? Did they understand why I wasn't there anymore? Sleep became a battlefield, the silence of the night amplifying the whispers of doubt and regret. I'd toss and turn, haunted by images of Brittany struggling, of the kids crying for their grandma. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, my sheets twisted around my legs, the silence of the house pressing down on me like a physical weight. I'd reach for my phone, tempted to call Brittany, to ask her how she was doing, to tell her that I loved her, that I missed her, that I was sorry. But I didn't. I couldn't. I knew that if I broke down, if I gave in, I'd be right back where I started, drowning in the endless demands of her life. I tried to keep myself busy. I went back to my pottery classes, but the clay felt cold and unyielding in my hands, the familiar comfort replaced by a strange sense of detachment. I tried to reconnect with old friends, but the conversations felt strained, superficial. They couldn't understand. They hadn't lived it. They hadn't felt the slow, suffocating weight of responsibility crushing them, hadn't felt the resentment simmering beneath the surface, hadn't experienced the sudden, desperate need to reclaim their own life. I started taking long walks along the beach, the white sand hot beneath my feet, the salty air whipping through my hair. I'd watch the waves crashing against the shore, the rhythmic ebb and flow, a constant reminder of the passage of time, of the choices we make, of the consequences that ripple outward, touching not just our own lives, but the lives of those around us. I'd think about Brittany, about the life she had chosen, about the life I had lost. I'd wonder if she was finally understanding the weight of her responsibilities, the burden she had placed on me for so long. One day, I ran into her at the grocery store. She looked even worse than before, thinner, paler, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. She was pushing a cart overflowing with diapers, baby food, and other essentials, her movement slow and deliberate, as if each step was a monumental effort. Jaden and Lily were trailing behind her, listless and subdued, their usual boisterous energy replaced by a quiet resignation. They looked up as I approached, their eyes widening in surprise. "Grandma," Jaden whispered, his voice barely audible. Lily just stared at me, her lower lip trembling. My heart clenched. I wanted to hug them, to tell them that everything would be okay, but I hesitated. I didn't want to give them false hope, didn't want to confuse them. I didn't want to give Brittany the impression that I was changing my mind. "Hi, kids," I said, my voice tight with emotion. I forced a smile, hoping it didn't look as strained as it felt. "How are you doing?" "We miss you, Grandma," Jaden mumbled, his eyes fixed on the floor. Lily nodded silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. Brittany just stood there, watching me, her expression unreadable. Her eyes were hollow, devoid of the spark that had once made them so bright. She looked defeated. "Brittany?" I started, my voice barely a whisper. I wanted to ask her how she was coping, how the kids were doing, if she was managing okay. But the words caught in my throat. She took a deep breath, and then, to my surprise, she spoke. "Mom," she said, her voice hoarse. I get it now. I understand." Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. I stared at her, waiting for her to continue. "I understand why you did it," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "I know I took advantage of you. I know I put too much on you. I never really thought about it before, about how much you were sacrificing, about how much you were giving up for me and the kids. But now I see it. I see how hard it was for you, how much you were hurting, and I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." Tears streamed down her face, her body shaking with sobs. I reached out and touched her arm, a silent gesture of comfort. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Relief, sadness, a touch of regret. I had been right. She finally understood. She finally saw the burden she had placed on me, the pain she had caused. But the realization came too late. The damage was done. "I still love you, Brittany," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "And I love the kids, but I can't go back. I can't do it again. You need to do this on your own. You need to be the mother they deserve." She nodded, her tears still flowing. "I know," she whispered. "I know." We stood there for a moment longer, two mothers, a daughter and a grandmother, bound by a love that had been tested, strained, almost broken. And then I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there amidst the overflowing grocery cart, a symbol of the weight she now carried alone. The weight I had finally, and irrevocably, set down. It's been a few months since that encounter in the grocery store. The silence in my bungalow is still there, but it's different now. It's not the suffocating silence of resentment and anger anymore. It's more peaceful, like the quiet after a storm. I've started to reclaim my life piece by piece. I'm back in my pottery class, my hands finding comfort in the cool, smooth clay. I've reconnected with some old friends, and we've started taking weekend trips to the beach, just like we used to. I even joined a book club, rediscovering the simple joy of losing myself in a good story. It's not the life I envisioned for myself at this age, but it's mine. Finally. Brittany called me a few weeks ago. She didn't ask for anything, didn't try to guilt me into coming back. She just wanted to talk. She told me about the new job she got, a full-time position with benefits at a local daycare. She told me about how she's been taking parenting classes, learning how to set boundaries, how to manage her time, how to be a better mom. She told me about how Jaden's doing well in school, how Lily's finally stopped being such a picky eater. She even told me about the baby, a little girl she named Hope. Her voice was stronger, more confident than I'd heard it in years. There was a weariness there, a quiet strength that comes from carrying a heavy load. But there was also a flicker of hope, a glimmer of the vibrant young woman she used to be. Then she started to cry. "Mom," she sobbed, her voice thick with emotion. "I know I messed up, I know I hurt you, and I know it's probably too late, but I just want you to know that I understand now. I understand the pain you were in. I understand the burden I put on you. And I'm so grateful for everything you did for me and the kids. I wish I'd realized it sooner." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. A wave of sadness washed over me, a bittersweet ache of what could have been. I wanted to tell her it was okay, that I forgave her, that I'd come back and help her. But I knew I couldn't. I couldn't go back to that life, to the endless cycle of enabling and resentment. I had to protect myself, protect the fragile peace I had finally found. "I love you, Brittany," I said, my voice trembling, "and I love the kids, and I'm proud of you for trying, for fighting, for being a good mom, but I can't go back. I need to live my own life now." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy, filled with unspoken emotions. Then she whispered, "I understand." And now, here I am, sitting on my porch swing, the humid Tampa air thick around me, the crickets chirping their nightly serenade. The swing creaks a comforting rhythm, a lullaby of sorts. I'm looking out at my little butter-yellow bungalow, at the bougainvillea blooming riotously by the front steps, and I'm thinking about Brittany, about Jaden and Lily, about little Hope. I'm thinking about the choices we've made, the consequences we've faced, the lessons we've learned. I'm thinking about the future, about the life I'm building for myself, about the woman I'm becoming. And I'm wondering, did I do the right thing? Was I wrong to step back and let her face the consequences of her choices, even though she finally understands my pain? AITA?